Overall, guitar setups can be really intimidating, especially when it comes down to intonation. But it's really not all that complicated. I'm going to show you how to do it. What's up everyone, Man Bun Metalhead here. In this video, I'm going to show you guys how to intonate an electric guitar. Now typically you want to set intonation on your guitar when you tune to pitch on a string, and as you play further up in that string, you're going to get more out of tune. There's a lot of reasons why you'll have to intonate. Maybe you just did a truss rod adjustment, or you set the action or the bridge height. You might have gotten new strings or different material strings, or you just might be affected by environmental changes like humidity or temperature. Now I'm going to show you guys how to intonate an electric guitar. I'm going to start with a fixed bridge first, and I'll show you a Floyd near the end. I'm going to go into a little bit of why you need to intonate, what the theory is behind it. If you don't want to hear about that, go ahead and skip to about right here, and I'll just get right into the intonation procedure. So let's just take a typical string as an example, like you would, of course, and you tune that string to pitch. You know that the 12th fret is exactly half of your scale length, so half the length of that string. If you didn't know that, now you do. So you should be essentially to play an E on your low string, and then press on the 12th fret and get an exact E at that same point. The problem is when you press a string, you're actually going to stretch it, therefore increasing the pitch of the string. So if this is exactly 25.5 and I press down at 12 3/4 of an inch, which is the 12th fret, I am going to stretch that string, and that string, that pitch, is now going to be slightly sharp. So now we have to adjust our scale length in order to compensate for that stretching. A lot of things can affect the intonation of your guitar, and mostly it's string parameters. So the material of your string, whether it's a steel string or a wound string, how it's wound, all that kind of stuff, how far your bridge height or your action is above the frets, all those play into effect. So you notice if you look at any bridge on any guitar, all your saddles are completely different. So really we just have to adjust the scale length for each string, and that's all intonation really is. Now before you do your intonation, you want to do every single thing you can for your guitar setup. So typically a basic guitar setup is going to be adjusting your truss rod. Now I have a video on that, so check it out. And you want to do your bridge height as well, or that is your action of your strings. So like I said, we have to change the scale length of the strings in order to intonate, and all you do is move your saddle back and forth. Now on an electric guitar, really easy. On an acoustic guitar, next to impossible. They have set bridges, so you just can't set them yourself. We're gonna stick with electrics because they're way easier. So when it comes down to different bridge types, mostly fixed bridges are gonna be really easy because you just have screws attached to the saddles. You turn the screw, it moves the saddle, and that's it. Now floating trems like a Floyd Rose are gonna be a little different. They're a little more of a pain in the butt, but I'll show you that near the end of the video. Now in a fixed bridge, you're typically going to have a screw on either the front here or the back of the bridge. Now mine are on the front. If you have a string through body, you might have them on the back. I think having them in the back is a little easier if you have a string through, because here I have the pickups a little in the way, not that big of a deal. And you can see here that all of my screws are flatheads, so just need a flathead screwdriver in order to adjust those. Now other than a screwdriver, all you'll need is a tuner. Now I recommend a tuner that has a strobe function. Whether or not you use that strobe function normally, doesn't really matter. The strobe is actually way more accurate than your normal tuning methods. So get one with a strobe, or just more than likely you have one with a strobe, just set it to the strobe. Now let's just get right into it. So all we have to do is first, obviously turn on your tuner, and we're going to play a string and tune it to pitch. So this one is actually pretty close. So now I just play the 12th fret, and you can see that I'm flat. So now I have to make the adjustment. So if your string is flat, that means you have to move the saddle towards the neck And if it is sharp, you move it away from the neck. So I'm going to take my handy dandy screwdriver. I'm going to turn this, tighten it up just to move. And we're going to do like a half a turn and see what happens. What I like to do is I like to go ahead and lift up the string a little bit. What can happen is the saddle, it can catch on the string, especially a wound string, and stretch the string. So you're going to have it a little maybe loose over here or tighter on the other side of the bridge. And really not that big of a deal, but it might just kind of fix itself later, and all of a sudden you're gonna have an out-of-tune string and you're like, oh, what just happened? But now that I've gone ahead and make my intonation adjustment, I'm gonna go ahead and tune back up. More than likely it should change my pitch. Pretty close. I'm gonna play the 12th fret. We're getting closer. It's not as flat as it was, but it's still a little flat. I don't know if you heard that. It kind of clicked a little bit because it was kind of clicking in the windings there. Again, sometimes you just kind of want to make sure you relieve the tension by pulling up on the string. Sometimes you just got to be a little patient, and sometimes maybe make big adjustments, but you know, sometimes you just do what you got to do. That's really close. Just a little flat. So we are going the right direction here. We're getting there. What's interesting here is I'm running out of space on my saddle, so I might not be able to get this completely perfect, but let's see where we go here. So now that actually might be a touch sharp, but it is pretty dang close. Probably good enough for most people. So I'm going to go ahead and let's check the A string. I'm not going to go all the way through these because you guys are kind of getting the idea, but let's just do one more string and see where we're at. So way flat again, which I'm not surprised because if you're looking at this saddle, this A saddle is way behind the E saddle, and I expect it to be a little closer. I'm just going to make a really big adjustment here because I know I had to make a big adjustment on my E string. I think that might be as far as I can go on this. So I am slightly flat. Remember, this is a strobe tuner, so this is going to be like super accurate. And your intonation is never going to be perfect. It's just not going to happen. So you want it as good as possible, and I think that's dang good. Now, let me see if I can change the calibration on this to show a different type. All right, so here we go, kind of like a standard tuner. Let's see how we look here. And it's pretty much dead on. It almost looks like it went a little flat here, kind of at the end of it, but you can see that it's really good, kind of when you look at a normal tuning method, or less accurate. So just because it's not totally perfect with the strobe doesn't mean that it's awful, but that's why I like to use the strobe, because the accuracy just gets you closer to where you need to be. So that's pretty much intonation for doing a fixed bridge. It really doesn't take that long, really simple to do. And it's kind of hard to screw it up. Now let's try a Floyd. So here we have the Floyd Rose trem. So really when it comes down to it, the theory is exactly the same. However, the adjustment is going to be a little more of a pain in the butt. So the main difference with these trems is, as you saw with the fixed bridge, that you just turn a screw and it moves the saddle back and forth. You don't have the same kind of adjustment on this. What you have is a screw here that holds down the saddle. So you would have to loosen the screw, move the saddle, and then tighten the screw back down. Now the big difference, you might notice now, is I'll have to relieve the tension on the string in order to move the saddle. It's a little more of a pain in the butt because you just have to deal with that. But it's the same theory. So let's go ahead and give it a shot. And my E string does look just a touch sharp. So that's a good starting point. And of course, with these, instead of using my screwdriver, I'm going to use some Allen wrenches. So first thing, I'm going to loosen the locking nut. Now the nice part with a Floyd Rose is having the springs. You shouldn't have too much problems loosening the string and going back up to pitch, especially if you have a good quality trem. You guys be like, well, dude, you're gonna loosen the strings, it's gonna throw it all out of whack. Yeah, it will. As soon as I loosen that string, all these strings are gonna go sharp. But the nice part is I'm always gonna have the same string tension on the back, or the same spring rate. So as soon as I start to, theoretically, as soon as I start to tune the E back up to pitch, everything else should be in pitch. And really, it doesn't matter that everything is not perfectly in pitch other than the E when I do the intonation. For the E, as long as my bridge level is roughly the same. You want to have it as close as possible. I have mine pretty flat. So let's go ahead and start making this adjustment. First thing I'm gonna do, lower that E. I want it nice and loose so I don't have any problems with the bridge going crazy on me. Mine was sharp, so I need to move the saddle away from the neck. And all these screws on my trem are all at kind of the same level. What you might notice, but there are actually 2 screw holes for this intonation screw. So if you need to move your saddle really far back and the screw isn't gonna kind of fit in the saddle because it's too far forward, you can just go ahead and take that screw out and move it back. But I don't know that we're gonna need to do that. We'll see. So I'm gonna go ahead and loosen the screw. And this is when you wanna like hold down the saddle and just kind of make sure the saddle doesn't go crazy on you, because you wanna have a good reference for where it's at when you go ahead and start to move it. Now, that did just move forward just a touch. So I'm gonna go ahead and kind of pull it back. And I'm gonna loosen my E string just a touch more because it is still definitely pulling. And that's almost, it might actually be a good candidate for moving the screw back, but we're gonna see where the intonation's at. And hopefully we have enough screw pressure to hold that clamp in place. So let's go ahead and turn this string back up. All right, we're up to pitch. We're gonna check our E. It's still slightly sharp. So that means we need to move it backwards again. So now this time, I'm gonna go ahead and go all the way back down. And I am going to go ahead and take out the screw and move it back as well, because we're definitely gonna have enough room for that screw to fit in back. So again, I'm gonna try to hold that saddle down just to make sure it doesn't go anywhere. But I have a decent reference of where it's supposed to be because kind of up on that last screw hole. There we go. So now my screw's in, so I'm gonna move it back just a touch. So now you can see in here, we have a lot more room left to push it back if we need be. I don't think we're gonna need to. Just have a spider fall on my head. I'm gonna go ahead and put it right about there-ish and see how that works. Now we can see that I am flat. It's the wondrous part about the Floyd Rose, is just the amount of time it takes you to adjust and check again. So this time, I'm gonna try to loosen this, because what's gonna happen with the string tension, it's just gonna go ahead and whack all the way forward. But it's not that far, it's just maybe a couple millimeters. But I wanna, do you hear that? I'll just imagine that going really far and screwing with you. So we're gonna keep it where it's at. Now I can see if moving the screw was a bad idea or not. That's actually exactly where it needed to be. So yeah, that actually worked out really well. I'm glad I told you guys about that screw and was able to actually show you it. Well, that's it. That is a quick and dirty way. Really not dirty, that's just the way that you do intonations. Not that hard, really simple, just takes a tiny bit of patience. So hopefully this video helped you out. If it did, give me a like down there below. Really helps me out a lot. And if you want to hear more about what I'm working on, like gear reviews, tips and tricks, techniques, that kind of stuff, feel free to subscribe to my channel and hit that little bell icon so you're notified whenever I have a new video come out. But hey, until next time, rock on.